Pay close attention. What you're about to see is Bible prophecy being fulfilled.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you the news that relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Katan, in the news tonight, we're going to talk about a major IT problem that just took place with those who are using the Microsoft operating system. Many were surprised to see the blue screen of death. So we'll have those details, as well as former President Donald Trump saying that if he is reelected president, he is going to make Taiwan pay for their protection, so to speak, from the United States. And we'll see what the Taiwanese premier has to say regarding that statement from former President Donald Trump. And then also, we're going to talk about Russia coming out and saying that if Ukraine decides to join NATO, that this might lead to the planet being shattered to pieces. So very strong words from Russia. But first, we're going to talk about something that hasn't been in the news for a little while, and that is the dengue fever. Now, Texans are familiar with West Nile virus, but another mosquito-borne illness has been lurking in the Austin area. 5 residents of Travis County have contracted the dengue fever. According to epidemiologist Heather Cook Sinclair, who works in the Austin Public Health Department, she says those who have contracted the illness all traveled to different regions of the world, including Central and South America, as well as Asia.
Infection, of course, comes from the bite of a mosquito and can cause symptoms like fever, nausea, and eye pain. In an interview with ABC's KBUE News at 5, Miss Cook Sinclair gave this advice to protect yourself. She said, quote, "Follow the 4 Ds. You're going to be around mosquitoes, dusk, and dawn. So you're going to put your insect repellent on that, of course, has DEET. You're going to don long sleeves and pants. And the last one is you're going to drain any water around to prevent any additional mosquito populations."
Well, so far this year, Texas has seen a total of 10 cases of dengue fever, and in 2023, there were 6 confirmed cases in Travis County. Now, approximately 5% of all cases are severe or life-threatening.
One of the world's biggest computer software companies went into crisis mode this week. Due to IT issues, the blue screen of death was seen on computers worldwide. Now, the problem affected companies like CBS News and banks across the globe. Another major player affected by the outage, airlines. That's right. Daily, there are red-eye flights that leave the West Coast and land in the East Coast a little bit later, but those flights never got off the ground. By just 7 a.m., there has been 1,200 flight delays and 750 flights canceled, probably putting a lot of stress on many people.
Well, but what caused the problem? Well, an issue between Microsoft and cybersecurity company called CrowdStrike. Now, CrowdStrike CEO released a statement saying, quote, "CrowdStrike is actively working with customers impacted by a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts." Now, the company maintains this is not a security incident or cyber attack. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed.
But that's not much comfort for airlines like American, United, and Delta, who all, of course, had to ground their flights overnight. While American and United began to restart their operations this morning, this computer issue has created very long lines at the airport. Basically, the IT problem prevented the airlines from communicating the information necessary to dispatch flights, resulting in those flights not being able to even leave the gate. While things are looking up, it's unclear how long it will take for airlines to get back up to their normal schedules.
Well, Microsoft says that they have been working on rerouting internet traffic to relieve customers in a more expedited way. Now, they are also continuing to post updates as their systems get back in order. Now, while some companies like Southwest aren't being severely affected, other forms aren't severely affecting other forms of transit, like the DC Metro system said it was going to start late this morning. Now, banks, hospitals, airlines, and anyone else who might use CrowdStrike systems are facing the blue screen of death and communication issues, which is reaching far beyond just travel, causing a global challenge in the world of IT.
That just shows how dependent the world is, especially the transportation industry, on things like computers.
Right, and you think of all the flights, just that one little glitch, and you see the long lines and people sleeping on the floors because they missed their flight or it's canceled.
Even though these things are much more convenient, 100 years ago, didn't have to worry about that. Well, in the nation's capital, the Democratic Senator Bob Mendez was recently convicted of bribery, a conviction which he says he will appeal. He was found guilty after a 2-month trial in New York City. The New Jersey senator's peers say that he should resign. Mendez and 2 of his business associates were found guilty of federal charges of bribery and extortion.
Well, Senator Mendez spoke publicly and said at a press briefing, quote, "I have never violated my public oath. I have never been anything but a patriot of my country." Now, federal prosecutors say that the former chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee accepted bribes from Egypt and Qatar, all the way from cash to a Mercedes for his wife.
The Senate Ethics Committee says that it is expediting a probe of Mendez and will consider a range of disciplinary actions and could include expulsion. Well, the last time an expulsion was given, it was during the Civil War, so a really long time. Mendez will be sentenced in October and could potentially face up to, now get this, 200 years behind bars. Now, you think that would be for some type of violent, heinous crime, but, 200 years for bribery and extortion.
Well, as the U.S. elections ramp up, the world is on edge as the candidate for the Republican Party, former President Donald Trump, said that some things are going to change regarding the U.S.'s role in the international community. For instance, the tiny island of Taiwan that currently receives military resources and protection from the U.S. Now, Trump says now they'll have to pay for that protection. Take a look at this next video for more details.
Donald Trump is leading the U.S. presidential race, and the world is watching closely because the result will impact everyone. Trump's statements are shaking stock markets. Today, Taiwan is on the edge after Trump said that they'll have to pay for U.S. support. We will discuss the implications. Trump 2.0 is the talk of the town. If he wins, will he be as unpredictable as before? Or will he go mainstream? A lot of countries and governments will be watching this closely, but none more than Taiwan. The U.S. is Taiwan's biggest defense partner, sort of like their shield against China. Joe Biden has repeatedly promised to defend Taiwan if attacked. But will Donald Trump do the same? He was asked this question in a recent interview. Listen to the answer. Taiwan did take about 100% of our chip business. I think Taiwan should pay us for defense. We are no different than an insurance company. Taiwan doesn't give us anything. Now, this is huge. A U.S. law requires Washington to defend Taiwan, but it does not say how. Defend how? It can be political support or military support or direct intervention. The Americans call it strategic ambiguity. But when it comes to Donald Trump, there is no ambiguity. He is clear about what he wants. Taiwan must pay for American support. That's what Trump wants. He's putting a price on it. The question is, what will that change? Taiwan already pays for U.S. weapons and equipment. But recently, Joe Biden has started a new trend, that of military aid. While you must pay for military sales, you don't have to pay for aid. It's funded by American taxpayers. Now, you may remember Biden's mega $95 billion package. Around $2 billion of it was meant for Taiwan. But under Trump, that may not happen. He wants to charge for military support and assistance. We have seen US warships sail through the Taiwan Strait. Perhaps that will come at a cost now. Or joint military drills may get billed, or training programs may get invoiced. It's a worrying scenario for Taiwan. Their premier has reacted to Donald Trump's comments. He says the US-Taiwan relationship remains rock solid.
I also noticed former US President Donald Trump's comments, but I'm sure that everyone knows that the Taiwan-US relations are rock solid from the past years. The peace and stability over the Taiwan Strait and the Indo-Pacific region are a common responsibility and goal.
It's not an easy sell. US support is the only thing keeping China at bay here. If Washington is shaky, Beijing could attack. And those fears are shaking up Taiwan's stock market. Their top chip company, TSMC, fell by 2.6% today. It lost $30 billion from its market value. And what about China? How are they reacting to it? Well, US assistance to Taiwan is a sensitive issue for Beijing. Today, they announced a major decision. China has suspended nuclear arms talks with Washington. Why? Because the US sold weapons to Taiwan.
For a period of time, the United States has ignored China's resolute opposition and repeated representations, continued its arms sales to Taiwan. For this reason, China has decided to suspend talks with the U.S. on a new round of arms control and non-proliferation consultations.
Well, that isn't a new sentiment coming from former President Trump, because when he was president, he told the UN Security Council that, the U.S. is paying the majority of the fees, nobody else is, so, we're going to just withdraw.
Right, and despite his pretty strong comments there, the Taiwanese premier, he's saying, hey, look, our relations are still rock solid.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not like they're even worried about it. Right. Well, the United States, once again, is not doing a great job in making peace internationally. It's announced plans to deploy missiles in Germany for the first time since the Cold War. Now, Moscow is angry and is voicing their anger over the matter. This next video has more information. Take a look.
Moving to Russia, Moscow has expressed anger over Washington's plan to deploy missiles in Germany for the first time since the Cold War. The Kremlin warns that the move will lead to a rising confrontation between Russia and the West. Vladimir Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov said, quote, "We are taking steady steps towards the Cold War. All the attributes of the Cold War with a direct confrontation are returning," end quote. Meanwhile, Russia's Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said that Russia cannot be intimidated by such moves and will find a response.
This is aimed against us. Of course, we must be aware of this. But there is no reason for nervousness or any alarm, because we began to prepare for such a development a long time ago. The aggressive course of the United States and the North Atlantic Alliance, led by Washington, is not changing. But we cannot be intimidated. We'll find a response.
Russia also said that Washington's plans in Germany have given Moscow reason to fulfill all its goals in Ukraine. Moscow's warning comes after the U.S. announced at the NATO summit that it will periodically station long-range missiles in Germany as a deterrent. These weapons will include SM-6 and Tomahawk cruise missiles, as well as hypersonic weapons that have a longer range than current capabilities in Europe. Now, it's important to note this new missile deployment would not have been possible under a 1987 treaty between the United States and the former Soviet Union, which fell apart in 2019. The pact banned the use of ground-based missiles with a range of more than 500 kilometers. Now, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says the planned deployment of weapons is a necessary and important decision at the right time.
The United States decided to deploy the precision strike capabilities in Germany, which I think is a very good decision, and it fits into all the decisions we already took. You find it also in the security strategy of the German government and in the agreements that we will have together, for instance, with UK and France, to develop our own deep precision strike capabilities. It is something of deterrence, so it's securing peace, and it is a necessary and important decision at the right time.
Now, the announcement of the weapons deployment has led to an outcry in Germany, bringing back painful memories of the Cold War. Critics say the deployment increases the danger of Germany becoming a theater of war. Meanwhile, NATO said that a new U.S. airbase in Poland is ready to detect and intercept ballistic missile attacks as part of NATO's missile shield. Now, with the NATO countries bolstering their defenses on the European continent, all eyes are on Vladimir Putin and the Kremlin's response to the rapid military buildup by NATO.
Yeah, well, that's definitely something Russia's not liking, but the German people are already worried about, as we heard in the video, you know, Germany being kind of a hot spot with the United States making these moves and Russia, you know, kind of wanting to fight against this. They're worried about they're going to have the same thing that took place back in World War II, that time period. Right, and Russia is making some pretty confident statements. They're saying, look, you know, they're doing this, but it's nothing to be concerned. We've been planning for this for a long time. That's right, that's right. Well, a war of words has sprung up between the Catholic Church and Israel. Words that the Catholic Commission of Justice and Peace in the Holy Land in Israel says justifies the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip. Well, this next video has more information on that topic.
Tension has arisen between the Catholic Church and Israel over the term just war. The controversy erupted following the publication of a statement by the Justice and Peace Commission of the Holy Land, a committee that forms part of the Assembly of Catholic Leaders in the region and whose president is Cardinal Pizzaballa. In the text, the commission expressed their dissatisfaction for the use of the concept of just war. They say it perpetuates and legitimizes the ongoing conflict. We feel the need to speak out against the misuse of a term used in Catholic doctrine. That term is just war, a concept developed in pre-Christian antiquity that, to our alarm as Christians, is increasingly being weaponized to justify the ongoing violence in Gaza. The Catechism of the Catholic Church uses this term when it describes the criteria for a war to be considered just. But the Commission in the Holy Land claims these points are not being fulfilled. That is, they point out that both sides have not differentiated between civilians and soldiers. Moreover, they say Israel has been using disproportionate force, which can be seen in the number of casualties. And the commission points out that the clear majority of victims has been Palestinian women and children. Israel responded to the commission's claims quickly with a statement from the Israeli embassy to the Holy See. It should be lamented that a group of people from the Catholic Church has decided to issue a document that, using religious pretext and linguistic stunts, does nothing else than de facto objecting Israel's right to defend itself from enemies' declared intentions to put an end to its existence. The embassy stresses that Israel's objectives were clear from the beginning, to put an end to Hamas in the territory. They also argue they have tried their best to distinguish between civilians and soldiers, and they claim Hamas has not. They state the commission's statements ignore attacks on Israel not only from Hamas, but also from Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Iran.
Well, you know, just to be clear, it's not the people of Israel, but this Catholic organization in Israel that is not in agreement with this, you know, thing that Rome put out regarding these words of just war, because, of course, as many people feel, it backs up the justification of these wars, especially the one that's taking place between Israel and Palestine with in that area of the Gaza Strip. Right. The whole just war is kind of like an oxymoron. It's, you know, you have, how do you justify war when you can see most all the time it's the people there, the inhabitants of those countries, they suffer the worst. They, you know, they lose their houses, they're displaced, as we've seen in many different countries, Syria, just to name one of them, you know, and they're still suffering from it. So to me, there's no such thing as a just war. No. Well, back to Russia as we close out. Now, this next video sheds light on what Moscow feels is a declaration of war, Ukraine joining NATO. Now, listen to what former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev had to say. Take a look.
In a stark declaration, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev warned that Ukraine joining NATO would be a declaration of war against Russia. This, in essence, would be a declaration of war, albeit with a delay, he said. His comments follow NATO's recent summit, which reaffirmed support for Ukraine's eventual membership without specifying a timeline. Medvedev, now a prominent Kremlin hawk, stated that such a move would escalate tensions to a breaking point. The more such attempts there are, the harsher our answers will become, Medvedev said. Whether this will shatter the entire planet into pieces depends solely on the prudence of NATO's side. He suggested that NATO's actions could lead to severe reprisals from Russia, potentially up to a nuclear apocalypse. The rhetoric reflects the high stakes as Western support for Ukraine increases. Despite potential changes in NATO's leadership with the appointment of Mark Rutte, Medvedev asserted that the alliance's strategic decisions remain dominated by the United States. His statements highlight the Kremlin's view of NATO as a unified front led by Washington, irrespective of individual leadership changes within the alliance. In a significant development on the Eastern Front, Russia's defense ministry announced that its forces have taken control of the village of Urozhain in Ukraine's Donetsk region. This move, if verified, marks another strategic gain for Moscow following the capture of Avdiivka in February. Ukrainian bloggers have indicated that Kyiv's forces have withdrawn from Urozhain, located southwest of the Russian-occupied city of Donetsk, though Ukraine's military maintains that fighting is still ongoing in the vicinity.
Well, Medvedev is still in the political scene, voicing pretty much the same sentiment as many in Moscow, that doing this is going to lead to an all-out nuclear war. And he's not the first person in Russia that's made those very statements. The very President Vladimir Putin has said that on several occasions, that nuclear war is something that's on the table. And of course, once that is initiated, then you're going to have an all-out nuclear war, because everybody's going to be wanting to defend their own interests in every country.
Right, and it sounds like he knows that, because his statements are saying, you know, this could lead to the planet being shattered in pieces, you know, and that's going to take nuclear war to do that. So it sounds like they're ready and they know how bad it's going to be if that takes place.
That's right. Well, not only will the planet be shattered in pieces, but the hopes of mankind going down this road will be shattered in pieces as well. Well, there is actually hope for peace and a better path to life, but you can't find it through war. You have to look towards a different direction. Look towards the house of Yahweh, and you can find those answers. And just contact the house of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your copies, your free copies of the Prophetic Word magazine and the monthly newsletter. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at The House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them by going to any of their websites. You can go to yahweh.com, YeshuaHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you'd like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@yahweh.com. For any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen. And once again, don't forget to check out the Yisrael Says program and the Ask Yisrael program by going to YisraelSays.com or AskYisrael.com. And the latest publications, you'll find the very latest publications on both of those websites put out by the House of Yahweh.
Well, don't go anywhere, because up next is a classic sermon by Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.